If you can't laugh at your troubles, then laugh at his as you listen to Les.
Gonna pull up, put on a happy face. Push up the clouds and cheer up, put on a happy face. Spread sunshine all over the place. Put on a happy face. My boy Bill will be tall and strong as a tree will he. Yes, my boy, my son. He's only 7 years of age, a tousle-haired bundle of energy with mischief brimming in his bright blue eyes. My son. He ran into our bedroom the other night and blew his toy trumpet down my ear hole. Not unnaturally, I leapt out of bed and I fell heavily on his skates, which accelerated my progress in the wardrobe door. I received mild concussions, I cannoned off it, and my foot got caught around a stool and it cracked my shin bone and I lost 2 fillings. Being partly stunned, I reeled onto the landing and my pyjamas got hooked on the banister rail. A little lad came over and tried to free me, this inert bulk. As he pulled my trousers, my pyjama cord snapped and I fell downstairs. As I lay there like a stranded stag beetle, with my nether regions naked for all the world to see, I'm still not convinced that he really meant to fire off his air gun. It was just at the impact of the pellet in the left buttock. It caused me to rear up like a freshly gelded stallion against the phone stand. Somehow I crawled along to the bathroom, holding onto the wall desperately. I would have been all right but a trod on his Lego set. And this caused me to fall headlong into the bath, and I found myself in erotic posture with his action man. I made a grab for the towel rail, which came away in my hand, and I was severely lacerated with flying lumps and broken tiles. Somehow the neighbours got me to bed, and I lay there like a column of agony, toying with the coverlet. Who do you think was first up those stairs? Not the wife, not the daughters. That little lad. Tears brimming unbidden to his orbs. He had a dish of soup. He said, "I'm so sorry, Dad." What can you say? How can you chastise a child who goes to that sort of trouble with cock a leaky in a dish? I said, "Thank you, son, but what's the dog barking for?" He said, "You've got his dish." My boy. Just before the show started tonight, I rang the wife up because this morning that little lad of mine gave next door's cats some Cenopods in the milk. The wife was having a breakdown when I phoned because the lad had just poured potties down the back of the television set. I said light-heartedly, "But at least when you switch on, you'll be sure of getting a cereal." I said, "How's the cats?" She said, "They're in the garden now. One's digging holes, one's filling them in, the other's looking for fresh sites." Yes, that's my boy, Bill. And I know that I get home tonight and turn the key in the door, he'll come flying down those stairs, straight to my arms, and he'll look at me with those big blue eyes and say, "Hiya, Dad." And he'll leap into my arms and I'll look at him and I'll hold him close and I'll strangle the little...
Today, the forces of law and order are in danger of being swept away by the tidal wave of crime. But for the intervention of one incredible man, Britain's own superhero, Wotan, Man of Steel! Welcome Welcome, valiant crime buster, guardian of our safety.
Thank you very much.
Tell us of your fascinating exploits so that the whole nation can rejoice.
Well, last Tuesday. No, I tell a lie. It was Wednesday.
Bravely spoken, fearless warrior who strives through the very jaws of hell for our protection.
Oh, I think that's a bit of a hyperbole.
The true modesty of the gentle giant.
Thank you.
We insist that you speak of your triumph.
Well, last Wednesday I was arranging some flowers with my friend Tarquin had brought.
Incredible, old mighty mortal champion of all in peril, human arrow of retribution.
I haven't told you what happened yet.
Do not deny us your words of wisdom.
I haven't said one word yet.
We plead, we beg, nay. We implore you to tell us how you snatched the fishing boat from the mouth of the killer whale.
Oh, the whale where the water was a bit cold, so I was just having a paddle when I heard this.
Unbelievable, Lord of the Universe, and what about the mad dog in petticoat lane?
I haven't finished with the whale yet.
How can we thank you, Colossus of Rochdale, winged messenger of hope? What can we do?
Well, you can shut up for a minute, let me say something.
We stand in awe of your majesty, struck dumb by your adventures.
Well, I've noted it up to now, you rabbit.
Scallop grasp all that you tell us.
Oh, this is stupid.
The whole of the Western Hemisphere is agog with impatience to know of your deeds.
Well, let me just speak.
Very well, Emperor of all you survey. If you will not talk of your actions, we cannot force you.
Well, I can feel one of my headaches coming on.
We must take our leave of you.
Oh, come on, what do you mean take your leave? I've not done anything yet. There must be somebody there in charge of the BBC who can see what's happening here. I'm on expensive, I've just done nothing. I've had all this thing done, I've had it all blown. Shut up. I'm getting very close to tears now, I can't believe much more of this. Oh, this is ridiculous. One was up in court last week accused of killing her husband with a bow and arrow. The judge said, "Why did you use a bow and arrow?" She said, "I'm going to wake up the kids." One of my neighbours applied for a divorce on the grounds that her husband was careless in his appearance. The judge said, "How do you mean careless in his appearance?" She said, "I haven't seen him for 5 years." I mention these two cases because tonight our subject of human suffering is marriage. There does seem to be a breakdown in marriages these days. I don't understand why. I think in marriages, some partner has to compromise. You have to find compromissory an attitude. I've been married now for 25 years and you don't get that for triple murder. But what's kept our marriage alive is that the wife and I believe in compromise. Like the time when things were rough and the wife wanted a new coat and I wanted a battery for the car. Well, obviously we couldn't afford both, so we compromised. She got the coat, but we keep it in the garage. And of course, one's wife or husband can get on your nerves. My wife irritates me. She's so thick she thought a lumber puncture was a flat plank. She can be childish. We had a tiff one night and I went up for a bath after it and she followed me into the bathroom and she deliberately sank me duck. But I got my own back, don't you worry, I put algapan in the rugby shorts. Guys, you come in for a minute, Chuck, and have a mug of bobber and a barm cake, sissy.
No, I would not. And quite frankly, I'm not speaking to you anymore, Ada.
Oh, come on, Chuck. Look, I've said I'm sorry about what happened. I mean, I'm still not sure what I did wrong.
Not sure? Well, I certainly am. And so was the audience in our immediate vicinity.
Well, half of it's your fault. What do you mean? I told you I can't stand ballet dancers. No, you made me go just the same.
Oh, yes, of course, it's all my fault. I simply thought that a night of culture might take your mind off bingo for a change.
Oh, you could be standoffish. Look, I'm not going to mither you, but let's get it out in the open. Come on. Now, what did I say or do that was so wrong? Just a minute. That cat's doing it again up the loopings. Get off! Get off, you're blanching the leaves.
All right, then. If you really want to know, I shall catalogue the events and castigate your behaviour.
That cat should be castigated, I'll tell you.
There is a perfect example of your quite appalling ignorance. I don't really think that this is quite the subject during high tea.
Shall I open it in the chunks?
I think not. Instead, we shall discuss what happened at the palace when we went to see the Royal Ballet perform Les Sylphides. When I mentioned that Rudolf Nuriev's pas de deux was outstanding, you said in a very loud voice it'd been a mess if his tights split.
Well, I thought it was rude. As though he's wearing an egg box.
When you started giggling during the Dying Swan, I mean, I could have died myself of embarrassment.
Well, that dancer was bandy, wasn't she? Her feet stuck out the wrong way.
That posture is meant to indicate the bird is expiring.
Oh, I'll give that she was sweating cobs.
Ada, you really are pig-ignorant at times. Anyway, I'm off now to get changed because tonight Leonard and I are going to the opening of La Traviata.
You'll catch me eating that foreign muck.
What are you talking about?
I'd sooner have a pan of broth. There's no taste in that Marconi.
La Traviata is not an Italian restaurant, you fool. It's an opera by Verdi. Oh. Do you know, I really feel sorry for you, Ed, at times. You're more to be pitied, really. I mean, you'll never understand the deep emotion of a well-performed aria.
I did when I was younger, but my back's out.
For instance, to experience the thrill of Wagner's Lohengrin.
I've never been that lucky, even during the war.
To be carried away by the sensuality of Borodin. Oh, for goodness sake, for the last time, Ada, come away from that window and straighten those tules.
I don't like the look of those new people at number 4. He looks foreign to me.
Well, I mean, matter of fact, he is. But a gentleman for all that. As he's actually from the Levant.
Is he? I never heard the system flush. He looks like an Arab mugger.
Honestly, must you be so narrow-minded, Ada? I mean, in this day and age, you've got to bend with the wind.
I counted these corsets to the stage, Lou.
Well, what is it?
Furniture van's just pulled up. Say, just look at that 3-piece suite. Uncut maquettes. That's cost a bob or two. And there's some bits of cloth hanging from the settee.
Bits of cloth, indeed. They're antimacassars.
Have they got relatives living with them as well?
Antimacassars are decorative pieces of material, sort of doilies, you know, for keeping the settee clean. Oh, I say, Ed, say. That's a beautiful poof.
Which one is that? Is it the big fella taking the chair in?
Ed, you really are beyond the pale. You've got a one-track mind, just like your Bert. He's got sex on his mind.
I know, I just wish he'd lower it a bit sometimes.
Your Bert's a disgrace to the neighbourhood. I'd just like to know what's driving him to drink.
Nobody drives him to drink. He's a volunteer.
Well, you should have got rid of him years ago. I mean, he hasn't worked since the end of the war. Just sits there watching television with a bottle in his hand.
I know, but he's got to take it out of his mouth sometimes, hasn't he?
Well, you just mark my words, Ada. You'll finish up in the arms of penury.
We won't. He always prefers the dog and duck.
When I think of the fellows you could have had. Now, Fred Pickles.
Oh, he was nice.
He fancied you.
He was nice, Fred Pickles.
Now, what happened exactly there?
One of those things. I'm filling up now. I took him home one night to try and impress him with me cooking. You know, Fred Pickles was a big football fanatic. We'd always watch football matches. Manchester United, potty. So I thought I'd cook him a special dish, so I did him football supporter. Chicken Kiev.
Oh, so what happened? Did he like it?
I don't know, he just stood up and said, I'm going now. I said, why? He said, the next time I watch it'll be Arsenal. An excess of the grape
caused me to drift towards my front door, rather like a bank of fog. As I fumbled in my pocket for the key which opened the portal to my heavily mortgaged wimpy Valhalla, the thing was quite suddenly flung ajar, and to reveal the formidable hulk of the female pestilence, who for some nerve-jangling years, 10 in all, has shared my name, the wife. Yes. 10 years we've been married, that's a decade. And frankly, I've never seen such a decayed-looking woman. I sensed a certain hostility in the stance of my spouse and the firm set of her 3 chins, a foreboding that became a reality when she hurled a porcelain platter of charred meat and veg at my approaching figure. With a somewhat unsteady dignity, I cupped my hand beneath my jaw in an effort to stem the flow of half-congealed gravy. There was by this time trickling to rivulets around the outer perimeter of my plastic dicky. To avoid a further assault, I leapt with commendable alacrity into a clump of stunted gladioli and lay shivering like a lump of discarded junket, whilst a positive barrage of non-stick kitchen utensils whistled by my rapidly greying head. I chanced a cautious peep at my wife, who was by this time crouched in the vestibule, snorting like a deranged warthog with piles. Not for the first time I pondered on my stupidity in marrying the crone. There'd be no reason why I had to wed the frump. I'd had a choice. I couldn't let her father shoot me. Even at the reception, it'd been obvious that the marriage was doomed because we had separate wedding cakes. My best man, a chum from my Oxford days, had implored me not to marry her. He'd grasped me around the knees and begged me to run away with him on a freighter bound for Devil's Island. To have a good life, but I paid no heed to his impassioned plea, and shortly after the wedding, in a fit of depression, my friend entered an obscure religious order where he is now the Mother Superior. He was, of course, correct in his assumption that the wife and I were not suited. Her family was so violent they took it in turns to be mugged. Whilst I, the son of a dreamy vicar, who was unfrocked because he was found without his clerical collar, in a cruise sauna bath, with a masked alderman and a goose. I came from a family that could trace its lineage back to Elric the Peculiar. The worst thing I was to discover after we'd only been married for 6 months, the bitter truth about the wife. Before we were married, she said she would die for me, and she hasn't. Then the night she came home, she'd lost the semi-final of a snooker handicapped. She was in a vicious temper, and she blurted out she was, in fact, an ex-Luftwaffe pilot who was in love with Oswald Mosley. With that, she fired off her Luger into the cat's cinders and ran off with a packet of watercress sandwiches and tried to invade Poland. The Lord knows I am not the stuff from which heroes are forged. But that night of the homecoming, I rose to my feet from the gladioli bed and cried aloud in ringing tones, "Enough, you baggage!" She lowered her head and butted me in the ribcage. And yet, despite everything, I still get homesick. I'm absolutely sick of it.
Once again, it's story time. Today, I'm going to tell you another thrilling adventure of Farm Boy Fred and his animal friends. Helping me, as usual, are Uncle Colin, who plays Farm Boy Fred, and clever Uncle Leslie, who plays all the animals. Well, every morning at 6 o'clock, Roger the Rooster woke Fred and all the animals with his loud, merry cry. Cock-a-doodle-doo! Cock-a-doodle-doo! It's time to rise! Open your eyes! I'm up! Why aren't you? Cock-a-doodle-doo! And Fred would leap out of bed and say good morning to all his animal friends.
Good morning, all my animal friends.
But on this particular morning, nobody heard Roger the rooster, and when Fred awoke, he looked at his clock and said,
Dearie me, dearie me, dearie me. The little hand's on 8 and the big hand's on 6. It's 9:45.
Fred wasn't very good at telling the time, was he, children? Well, Fred rushed out into the farmyard to ask the other animals if they had seen Roger.
Hello, Dobbin the horse. How are you today?
Nicely, thank you.
Have you seen Roger the rooster, Dobbin?
Nay. Nay. Nary a sign of him.
So then Fred asked Percy the pig, but he said,
No. Roger didn't cock his doodle this morning, so I overslept. I couldn't get out of my muddy bed.
Well, Fred was getting worried, so he asked Rover the dog.
I've not seen Roger the rooster. Maybe he had a rough night.
Then Fred saw the cat, and he said,
Do you know where Roger is, Puss?
Me, how would I know? Heavens to Megatroid. I was on the tiles, as usual. I'm going to sleep till he crows. That's why I'm still awake.
Well, by now Fred was most perturbed, and he said,
I am most perturbed.
Uncle Colin once went to the old Vic selling programmes.
Quiet. Just then, Roger appeared and said,
Squawk, squawk. Sorry I was late. Cock a wet doodle.
Roger told them that the farmer wanted to have a lot more poultry on the farm by Christmas, so he had gone to the market. Roger said,
Squawk, squawk. That means you'll be getting rid of me and bringing home a younger bird with more doodle. Squawk, squawk.
On hearing this, all the animals began to cry together.
Do me a favour.
They all cried together. But suddenly they all stopped crying.
Thank God for that.
Farmer hasn't bought a new rooster instead of you. He's bought some turkeys for Christmas.
And sure enough, the farmer's cart was loaded with turkeys. When they saw this, all the animals began to laugh together.
I know, together. At this moment. Grunt, grunt, Mary. Grunt. Whoop, whoop. Rah, 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 rah. Hit-ba, hit-ba, hit-ba. Ha, ha, moo, moo, ha. Little brown hen, the dog.
Like us, you may be sad to know that this is the end of the series. But the good news is that it means Les Dawson will be playing the piano for the last time.
Thank you, Daphne Oxenford. After this show, of course, Daphne is making a film. It's a new one called Jaws 3. Yes, it's the last show in the series. Nostalgia, of course, now is overpowering our emotions. Very sad. We've worked together all these years for very little money. And it's been a pleasure. So let us finish on a nice, nostalgic and emotional note by playing and singing together We'll Meet Again. The show sinks into the mud of oblivion. Come on. Don't be shy. Try and keep up. It's lovely when voices and music are raced together, because if you've got a gift, you must share it. Remember, I don't do this for the money, I just do it for luxuries. Bread and shoes. Here we go, that wonderful Now Is the Hour. That's the idea, come along, all as one.
That was Listen to Les, a radio programme committed by Les Dawson, aided and abetted by Daphne Oxenford, Roy Barraclough and me, Colin Edwin. Brian Fitzgerald admits to being responsible for some of the music, but a plea of not guilty is offered by writer-producer James Casey.